What is good, y'all? Welcome back to ACEON Consciousness, and today on this episode, we're gonna jump right into Tartaria.
Hey man, I'm about sick of every time I go live, somebody asking me about Tartaria. So you know what? Let's go ahead and deal with this subject real quick so we can get this over with. Do you mind if I reason with you for a moment? Listen up.
Now, if you're unfamiliar with Tartaria, here is the textbook definition of Tartaria. So let's say if we go ahead and Google what is Tartaria, you will see here. Tartaria, or Tartary, has two distinct meanings historically. It was a generic geographic term used by Europeans to describe a vast, little-known area of Central Asia and Siberia. Today, it is more commonly associated with an internet pseudo-historical conspiracy theory. Automatically, you know there's got to be some truth to it. We're getting into the better definition of it, which is this one right here. And this is definition 2, the pseudo-historical conspiracy theory. In modern culture, Tartaria, or the Tartarian Empire, refers to a popular pseudo-historical conspiracy theory. The myth. Proponents claim Tartaria was a vast, technological, advanced, and peaceful global empire that existed until roughly the 19th or early 20th century. That ain't that long ago. Right? Talks about architecture and just the buildings that were built. And then right here at the bottom, it says the mud flood. The theory generally asserts that global elites intentionally erased Tartaria from history, aided by a cataclysmic mud flood that supposedly wiped out the empire. Now, what that's saying is, besides what it's saying, is when you look at buildings now, and on ground level, there's like window arches right above ground level, that something happened and a mud flood came through, wiped out a vast, thriving, technologically advanced civilization. Now, here's a different take on Tartaria. This is with Eddie Bravo on his podcast, the Look Into It podcast, and he's interviewing Paul Stobbs, who has a really interesting take on Tartaria.
Wild, because I'm considered like a white belt in the whole Tartaria thing. I'm fascinated by it. Like, it's insane that there's all these structures all over the world in every major city. They're in LA. You see them, these cathedrals and these crazy buildings that they're not building anymore. And they say, oh, they used to build that in the 1800s. And, you know, and then your research is based on.
Now, this is where it gets biblical, and it gets into the whole area of Jesus, which is really interesting.
How possibly Jesus was responsible for, or a part of the Tartarian Empire that went on 1,000 years. Satan was in a lake of fire, and then after the 1,000 years, they released Satan, and here we are. Like in the 1700s, Satan got released, and now we're here in the little season, the little satanic season. Correct?
Yes.
Am I close?
You've pretty much nailed it on the head there, Eddie. Yeah, give yourself a pat on the back. That was pretty good.
Damn. Yeah, I'm fascinated by it because we don't know how these buildings have popped up everywhere, and they're just beautiful, insane. The architecture is unbelievable, and no one's doing shit like this anymore. And like, where did this come from? And they were already in San Francisco and in Seattle, and it was supposed to be the Wild West. Like, what? What's good? There was castles in Utah. Like, what's going on?
Now, let's look at this definition one more time. The myth. Proponents claim Tartaria was a vast, technological, advanced, and peaceful global empire.
Tartaria was not some motherfucking global, peaceful fucking civilization where mankind lived at a high state and we were brought down. Tartaria is the prison of the fallen angels and all of their technologies.
All right, but if you ask Paul Stobbs what Tartaria is, you might get a different definition.
This is what people call Tartaria. Christ could build up the earth and its infrastructure for 1,000 years into something impossible for Satan to destroy. Something so complex, so infrastructurally built out with canals and cathedrals and cities and waterworks and pipes and undergrounds, everything just built out to the max. So when the devil's released after his 1,000-year imprisonment, he is going to try his best to erase as much as he possibly can. But he just can't. It's impossible because Christ built up too much in those 1,000 years with his saints. This is what people call Tartaria.
Tartaria was supposed to be a prison, motherfucker. It's supposed to be a prison, but somehow the inmates had the keys. So these motherfuckers turned a prison into paradise. And you think God was happy about that? Not at all. Hence, the mud flood, bitch.
The mud flood. The theory generally asserts that global elites intentionally erased Tartaria from history, aided by a cataclysmic mud flood that supposedly wiped out the empire.
You think God was happy about that? Not at all. Hence, the mud flood, bitch.
Not that long ago, maybe about 200, just over 200 years ago, something cataclysmic happened.
All right, like I said, discernment. What are y'all noticing? Another common thing. So yes, there was Tartaria. What it was, it's open for discussion. But what else happened? A cataclysm, a mud flood. The mud flood keeps coming in. The mud flood, the mud flood, the mud flood. But what exactly, how mud flood, what would that be? Where would the mud come from? Raises a lot of questions. One more thing with Paul coming up right here, that he will hint to something, and then I got a little something for you.
There's clearly evidence something happened. There was an advanced civilization, and these buildings are clearly sound, manifest, physical somehow.
All right, so he said something interesting real quick. He said sound made physical. That would be cymatics. And I had this whole idea for this episode, and then just like a couple days after, I'm watching a pretty in-depth thing on cymatics with Michael Tellinger, and he says this.
So the original people of Australia have a creation story that says time began when the supernatural beings awoke and broke through the surface of the earth. So imagine the surface of the earth being something like this, that metal plate being the surface of the earth. And the supernatural beings broke through the surface of the earth, and they created the surface of the earth with 3 sacred songs. This is from Hans Jenny's brilliant video, Cymatics. This is powder on a metal plate. It's not a liquid or a jelly. It's powder. You can see landscapes being formed here over extended periods of time. Mountains can form, valleys, volcanoes, all to do with the sound of the earth coming out of the earth. The source of creation is sound itself. And that takes us to what sound does. Sound pretty much does everything you can imagine because it's a source of creation.
And there you have it. Sound is the source of creation. So just gives you something to think about. You know, Tartaria is, again, there's so much debate about it, but there clearly was something, and it's been covered up, or they've tried to cover it up who they are. That's for episodes in the future. But then you wonder about this mud flood. How could it have happened? Sound, baby, sound. It's all sound. And I'm understanding it. I know what I've come through. It makes sense. And we'll just keep getting into these episodes, and hopefully I can, share what makes sense to me, and hopefully it'll start making sense to you. So thank you for sticking around for this episode of ACEON Consciousness, and we'll catch you on the next one. Ciao.